Hello and welcome back to another video where I'm going to explain the assessment criteria for the contextual challenge, which is most commonly referred to as your non-examined assessment, your NEA. So jumping straight into it then, this document here is the specification for design and technology, which is uploaded on the WJEC website for everybody, and it has been running since 2017. It's 2025 now and it's still the same as it was 8 years ago, but it's due to change in 2026. So stay tuned for like an updated video over the next year or so to show the differences between the two. Moving back to this document though, I'm going to jump right into the assessment criteria, which is displayed in a table quite clearly for you all to see. You can see that it's separated into 5 sections, going from A to E. Section A is to do with identifying design possibilities, and this is worth 10 marks under the assessment objective 1. This would be your research section, so anything to do with identifying the wants and needs of the user, identifying the customer, doing your research regarding product analysis, making sure that you've done a client questionnaire, a target market questionnaire, and summarise the results. And then your summative conclusion within that section would be your research summary. Section B then should be then developing a design brief, so identifying the need for your product or the want for your product and summarising that in a written format, and your specification, which can be done as a written format, a report or a table as well. This section is worth 10 marks, which contributes to the top 2 sections being 20 marks in total. Section C is generating and developing design ideas, whether that be using sketches or drawings, technical drawings and CAD. This is worth 30 marks in total, and that requires annotation as well, most commonly using Access FM. Making the prototype, which uses technical skills, production skills and techniques, workshop tools and equipment and machinery, and CAD/CAM softwares. That is with 30 marks as well. And evaluating a prototype's fitness for purpose against the specification and making modifications and room for improvement is worth 20 marks. So all of that equates to 100 marks total. This NEA task is actually worth 50% of your total marks of your GCSE, and it's assessed by your teacher. Your teacher might refer to moderation, and if you get confused by that term, it essentially means that somebody is going to come in at the end of the year after your teacher has marked your work, and they are going to check that your teacher has been marking correctly against the specification that they've been given. So they don't actually look too much into your work and what the quality of your work is, but they are just checking the teacher's marking, so don't get too stressed out by the term moderation. Okay, so in June you will be given a contextual challenge for the year, and this will most likely be within year 10. So June of year 10 you'll be given 3 design briefs where you can choose one of those 3, which will become essentially your NEA for the following year. We start it in year 10 to give you the best opportunities possible to then work on it throughout the summer holidays. And you should be able to make this and create this document or portfolio or sketchbook within 35 hours. This should be directed time, so time in school as opposed to outside of school. It needs to be supervised, and teachers need to monitor learners because of the design folio, which basically means your teachers have to know that you are the ones doing the work. That's why things are monitored, and you need to be able to manage your time appropriately, which is why most teachers will set you deadlines. Now deadlines are incredibly important. I for one set deadlines almost bi-weekly, so fortnightly, just to make sure that work is chunked in smaller chunks. Within your work, you need to have a design brief developed in response to one of the contextual challenges, and each of those design briefs should be different. So even if you and your friend are working on the same context set by the WJEC, you might create a problem or find out a problem within that context that is completely different to the person sat next to you. you could be focusing on travel, for example, and the project that you want to make solves a problem to do with aircrafts or travel via bicycle, whereas the person sat next to you might choose to focus on travel via a car or an automotive. You'll come up with two separate projects, but also within the same context. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more information and detail that you need moving forward into June when you are given your context. You're going to have to create a final prototype or prototypes based on the design brief. So you'll have to actually physically make something. Now, please be aware that it just says prototype. It doesn't always need to function the way that you would described it within the design brief. However, I usually tell my pupils and learners that it needs to look like it's going to function. You need to include small details. For example, if you're making a home hub, such as, and I'll say this quietly, an Alexa. Just checking that she wasn't going off. Then you would have to include the buttons for volume or the on-off buttons, or you would have the small cable where the cord would go in, where the plug would go in, sorry. Those small intricate little details would actually benefit you massively to show that your final prototype has been considered to be one of your final prototypes before the actual physical model or product would be made, whether that be in bespoke one-off job production or batch production or mass production. And you could describe that then within your evaluation. And then finally then, additional evidence as necessary. This is referring to how you display your work. You could include an A3 design portfolio to enable the assessment of the learner's attainment, blah, 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 blah. So essentially, we want about 15 to 20 A3 single-sided sheets of paper for your portfolio. It doesn't need to be much more than this, but you can go over. We often do. But it really doesn't need to, as long as you've included everything that needs to be there. This can be done electronically also. So we use Google Slides via Google Classroom to monitor work, and we generate it electronically. However, within your school, perhaps you do things a little bit differently and do it all by hand. Either way, it's completely fine. So I'm not going to go into supervision. That's mostly for your teachers. I will draw attention to this though, that your prototype, your final prototype, has to be done under immediate guidance or supervision. So it has to be done in school. Your guidance, you might ask your teacher for help with certain things, but there might be limits to what your teacher can do. So we can support you if you have any problems, such as with tools, machinery, CAD. However, we cannot do it for you. If you ask us to cut something up for you, usually my response is, you know where the saws are, or would you like me to guide you through how to use the scroll saw, and so on and so forth. But you have to be the person individually and independently making your prototype and creating your portfolio. We have to ensure that you guys root through the contextual challenge without giving you an actual template. So you have to be able to create your work from scratch yourself without the need for your teacher listing things off for you to include on your page. Now, I'm sure every teacher does things differently, and we shouldn't really provide exemplar material. However, if you've got products on the wall, if you've got pages that have been printed off as exemplar work around the room, just try and take inspiration from work that's been done in the past. Obviously, because the context change every single year anyway, you cannot plagiarize. And that's due to, that's just down to you guys. You're going to need to make sure that you're not copying anybody from years before, but also from your peers in the lessons that you attain, that you go to now. So please make sure that your work is your own work. We're not allowed to give you detailed advice. We can't specify a situation, task or brief. It has to be your decision, and we can't correct or modify your work. So even though I can point out if you've got spelling, punctuation or grammar incorrect, I won't be able to make those changes myself. I'll just have to draw attention to them. We can't produce any form of writing frame, so we can't give you any like sentence starters or anything for your design portfolio. And we can't actually mark your work and then return it to you to improve. So that's something that you might be used to in Key Stage 3. But now that you're at GCSE, it's not something that you should get used to now. And then finally, once your work has been submitted and marked, it cannot be returned to you. So scrolling down. I'm just going to see if I can find the mark scheme. Here we go. Right. I'm going to spend the rest of this video now going through the mark scheme for product design under the GCSE Design and Technology course. Obviously, I'm only going to be focusing really on Band 4 and maybe drawing points set from Band 3. However, Bands 2, 1 and 0 I won't be commenting too much on because that is just limited amount of work. If you're watching this video, you are taking steps to ensuring that you are retaining those Band 3 and Band 4, which is what is going to get you the A's and A stars, hopefully. So, identify and design possibilities. Like I've referenced before, this is mostly your research section. So to get 9 to 10 marks, you need to have undertaken thorough and effective identification of opportunities for the development of designs within the context. And what we mean by that is that you've explored via something like a mind map all of the problems and the solutions needed for a specific thing under the context. So like I was saying about travel earlier, it could be that you start exploring problems within automotives, problems within flights, problems within sea travel, and so on and so forth. All of these different ideas will give you different products that you could make to solve different problems. And that's how your projects should start, with research into different problems and different solutions. After that, then you need to undertake detailed, relevant research and investigation, clearly linked to the context and, where appropriate, the work of past, present professionals and companies. So this could take the form of a product analysis, where you have a look at travel products from the past. An example being a tray, for example, that you could have in the car that would balance your food if you were having like a snack on a long journey. That's just an idea. It could be that you do a product analysis of that. We commonly use Access FM to undertake our product analyses. So after that, then you should have things like designer research pages. We only have a look at a couple of designers within this section. These being designers such as Bethan Gray, James Dyson, Ross Lovegrove, maybe sometimes Philippe Stark, etc. Just so that people get an idea of how design works and what makes actual successful design. After that, then, you need to have undertaken detailed and effective analysis of information, reflecting the needs, wants and values of clients or potential users. So that would be where you're identifying who you would be making your product for, and what problem you aim to solve for that particular person. The best way to find that information out would be via questionnaire or interview. So it could be that you conduct a client interview and then summarize the results on a following page, or you have a demographic and you have a target group and you create a questionnaire for your target group that is then answered and then summarized on the following page. And that would then allow you to get into Band 4 of identifying design possibilities. And finally, then, to get 9 to 10 marks, identifying a broad range of problems or opportunities to clearly inform the development of possible design briefs. So we're not just talking about the quantity and quality of your pages here. We're talking about, have you identified a range of problems and opportunities, and have you investigated into them thoroughly? If you feel like maybe there was some kind of area for development within that section, then you're probably looking at Band 3, which would be your 6 to 8 marks. If you've done a thorough job, a rigorous job of research, then you're probably looking at 9 to 10 marks for that section. Okay, quickly moving down to Part B then. Section B is developing a design brief and specification. Now, this doesn't have to be too many pages. In fact, it should only be a couple. You need to have fully considered a range of problems and opportunities before deciding upon a final design brief. So throughout your entire research section, you shouldn't have a specific product in mind. It should just be investigating. By the time you get to section B, then you should have narrowed it down to just one single problem and one single solution. And you've guessed it, your solution should be your product that you end up making. You need to have demonstrated a very good understanding of the task ahead and requirements which have to be met to satisfy the needs, wants and interests of potential users. Now that then lends itself into the design specification, where you're identifying areas within your product that you'll need to meet in order to solve the problem. So if you've identified that your client needs a small solution, when you're writing your specification within the size section, you would be talking about how sizing is important because it needs to be portable, for example. You need to have written a design brief relevant to the context based upon a thorough analysis of research and investigation. So you need to make sure that within your design brief, you're drawing upon the research that you've conducted in the first section, and you're actually putting it into words within the design brief. Make sure that you've got clear and consistent links throughout your work to show a thorough understanding. And if you do that, obviously then you'll be attaining those 9 to 10 marks in this section. And then finally, I just want to put emphasis on a detailed relevant specification, including a range of objective and measurable criteria to direct and inform the design and manufacture of a prototype. So picking that apart, then it says a detailed and relevant specification. And like I've said before, you could use Access FM to do that. A range of objective and measurable criteria. Essentially, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Why are you going to do it? And how are you going to measure it? That's what you want to get across on your design specification. Those 4 points need to be identifiable. And if you have a way of creating like a checklist, you can then use that specification within your evaluation and jump back to it after you've designed your product to make sure that it's a successful product. If you've ticked off everything within your design specification, it will be a success. Okay. And then 6 to 8 marks is you've considered a range. However, maybe there is some room for more detail. So if you've made the links, however, perhaps there are some inconsistencies or maybe some room for improvement, then you've probably dropped down to band 3. And then we're highlighting keywords like some research and some level of detail within band 2. Okay. Section C then, generating and developing design ideas, is one of the heavier AOs, assessment objectives. This is where you're approaching your design ideas. So have you considered a range of design strategies, techniques and approaches and applied an iterative design process? Now that word iterative is so key to this course. Iterative means that you are showing consistent development throughout your work. And we're not talking about quality. If you're improving your drawing skill throughout the course, then fantastic, but I'm not marking you on that. I'm thinking your design should be progressively becoming better and better and more successful the more times you design it. So throughout your design ideas and your design developments, you should be able to go, okay, my design idea 1, it kind of meets the design brief and the specification, but not quite. And then your final design should go, yes, that ticks all the boxes. I've done an excellent job here and I can't do any better. So your final design should be measured against your design specification and should be essentially using that checklist. You've met every single thing on there. You don't have to do that for, say, your initial designs. Your initial designs are just playing around with ideas, ways that you can possibly solve the problem that you're aiming to solve. Okay, so try and focus on that and having an iterative design process, having it completely developmental and going from it's an okay design idea to it's an excellent design idea in the end. So you need to have a broad, complex and diverse range of initial ideas to begin with. So I'm thinking around the range of 6 to 8 design ideas and then possibly 4 to 6 design developments. However, it's completely down to the guidance of your teacher. Or yourself. So it could be that you choose to do more. It could be that you choose to venture out and create a whole page of design ideas of up to like 30 drawings just as an ideation page. It's completely down to you, your design style, and how you'd like to present your work. Okay, you need to have identified and considered social, moral, and economic factors which are relevant to the context and potential users. Now, picking things apart here. Social, how is it going to impact somebody's or a community's social life? Does it impact ethnicity? Does it impact a minority? Does it impact any social group within the UK and beyond? So don't just think that this is designed for your typical Welsh person. If you're living in Wales, you could be designing this for a third world country or somebody anywhere in the world. How would it impact their social being? Moral, is it moral? Is it actually a good product to design? Is it moral? Is it going to impact somebody's morals if they were to use it? Is it going to impact your morals as a company if you've got a brand, if you're going down the idea of this is my brand, this is my product that my brand sells? Would it be moral for you to sell that product? You have to think a little bit outside of the box with this one and think, if this was in the real world as opposed to in school, would it be a moral product to make? And economic, is it worth the money? So, for example, if you're making something out of solid gold, but it doesn't really need to be, is it economic? Probably not. If you're making something for a third world country and it's meant to solve a problem within a third world country, is it going to be beneficial to make it thousands of pounds to create if you're giving it away for free? Probably not. So is it relevant to the context and the potential users? You get to decide, but you need to put that down either through your annotation or on paper through a page. Have you clearly and effectively and detailed your use of testing to evolve ideas and refine your design decisions? So have you tested your designs by maybe going back to your client and asking for an interview? So have you compared it to the design specification and listed how it's met? Have you gotten somebody else's feedback? Maybe you've talked to a friend and then asked them to give you feedback on your design ideas. However you'd like to show this, you can put that in your work, and that should allow you to get those 24 to 30 marks. Have you developed a detailed proposal including comprehensive and relevant details of materials, dimensions, finishes and production techniques, which clearly address all of the requirements of the design brief and specification? Wow, that's a mouthful. So that's essentially asking you to annotate your design ideas with those headings, okay? So you need to make sure that you've ticked all of those things off, and you've drawn attention to the fact that you've included all of those in your proposal for your design ideas. So it might be worth having them as headings and then writing the annotation underneath. It might be worth putting it as a table. Again, it's completely down to you and how you'd like to present your work. And then finally, have you demonstrated sophisticated use of a range of skills and techniques to clearly communicate ideas? So have you used CAD? Have you used Fusion 360 in our case? Have you used Onshape, Tinkercad? Have you used SolidWorks? Maybe you've got access to SolidWorks in school. CAD is an excellent way to show visuals with appearances. I particularly love CAD, and that's how I like to allow my students to show progression and quality within their work. However, don't underestimate the power of a good sketch. By having a really nice sketch that pops out from the page, that's also showing really, really good skills and techniques that are used daily by designers in the real world. So by having a combination of both, and perhaps models as well, physical models for your design developments, that is a range of skills and techniques. So you would be accessing 24 to 30 marks for Band C, for Section C. Okay, speeding through the rest then. Making a prototype. Essentially, if you've got a high quality prototype that has used a range of different machines, skills, techniques, workshop equipment, tools and equipment, then you should be attaining the top bands here. Now you need to make sure that you've actually done this to a high quality. You can't provide, just a laser cut design that has been stuck together with PVA glue and think that that is a fantastic outcome. You're probably limiting yourself there to about 16 to 23 marks. However, if you have endeavoured to combine a laser cut approach with an actual physical manufacturing approach, where you've demonstrated workshop skills, then perhaps that's getting you into band 4 as well. As long as you've understood the working properties and performance characteristics of specific materials as well. So for example, you've selected pine, a softwood, to create your product from, or you've chosen plywood because it's more sustainable, and a cheaper alternative to using like a hardwood, which is going to look nicer but be heavier, for example, then, and you reference that within your work, then you're probably going to attain those 24 to 30 marks again. It might be worth doing some testing on materials as well to see what your finishes would be like. So for example, you could take a sheet of plywood, a small sheet, and then apply a wood stain, a darker wood stain. You could apply a sanding sealant, you could apply all sorts of different finishing techniques, and then make your judgments via your portfolio. So you could have a testing page that then shows that you've understood the working properties and you've done some testing. It would be fantastic to show to your examiner that you've considered different approaches. Okay, and then finally, once you've taken photos of your product and put them onto your portfolio, it's important to do an evaluation. So considering the testing of your idea, so essentially, has your client approved of your idea and your prototype? Perhaps take the approach of doing an interview or a questionnaire at the end of your project to get results, and get their opinion. It doesn't always have to be an actual person. You could model the response by asking a peer, asking your teacher to comment, and then putting it in the format of asking a client. That's totally fine. And then, have you undertaken a critical and objective evaluation and testing of your prototype, taking into account the views of potential users? So perhaps that's the view of, does your target market like it, as opposed to just your client? You could ask for multiple people's opinions, send out a questionnaire, like you do with Welsh Back. You could have loads of different forms of feedback, however you would like, but that is what you need. You need to have critical and objective analysis. So critical meaning that you're unafraid to say, oh, well, even though this was a good idea, it didn't really work when it was implemented, and so this is how I would change it. And then finally, you need to respond to feedback and clearly identify the potential for further development. So it could be that you have a modifications page and show some CAD of the modifications that you would make, but you have to explain why. It can't just pop out of nowhere. You can't decide randomly some Monday morning, okay, I think I just changed the colour to pink. You would have to reflect on the questionnaire responses that you have and the peer reviews that you have in order to create those modifications. And breathe. So you can see that there's a lot of content within the NEA for product design, and it is quite difficult to get up to the top bands of all 5 of the sections. However, it's not impossible. It does take a lot of time management, so that's a skill that I would encourage you all to work on. Hopefully this video has been a nice way to kind of break down the mark scheme and go through each of the assessment objectives. If you've got any other questions, please leave them in a comment below and I'll endeavour to get back to you. As I've stated before, this is a quick disclaimer. I don't work for the WJEC. I've only taught this course now for about 4 years, but I'm endeavouring to make this course a little bit more accessible to you all, depending on your situations. But please do not go against anything that your teachers say. This is just a breakdown of the mark scheme. They will go into way more detail, I'm sure, but I'm just trying to assist you along the journey. Good luck if you're starting your NEA in 2025. I'm sure you're going to do fabulous if you have been doing it since last year and you're about to submit your coursework and you've just come back to this as like a little refresh of what the mark scheme is. And I'll get back to you in 2026 when the specification is due to change.